One thing I always try to make space for when I'm doing classroom management trainings with different schools and districts across the country is to have a Q&A session where teachers can ask any question anonymously, and I go through as many as I can and give answers right off the cuff. So in today's video, I thought I would do something different and have a Q&A session today. Coming up next. Hey everybody, Michelle Holliday here. I'm a behavior strategist and I help schools, teachers, districts, and youth organizations with systems and strategies to manage their classrooms and their students with less stress and less struggle. And in today's video, I thought I would do something different and have a Q&A session with all of you. So I have some questions that often come up. I'm going to answer them in the moment and we'll see how it goes. Let's get started. Question number one. How do I deal with students acting up in class? Okay, so when you have students who are acting up in class, here's the first thing I want you to do is to adopt a mindset that this is a process and a part of student-child development. So don't think it's strange when you have kids acting out. This is a part of being a teacher. Here's what I think you should have in place. First of all, you need to have a classroom-based management system in place. So when I talk about a classroom-based management system, I'm talking about a system that you use in your classroom that does not require outside help, meaning it doesn't require a support staff member or it doesn't require some of the incentives or consequences that the school provides overall. So have a classroom-based management system in place. And that way, when the behaviors happen, you have an automatic way or a systematic way of responding to them. The second thing I would say is to know your top 3 to 5 misbehaviors. So know what are those 3 to 5 behaviors that are always showing up in your classroom, always causing a disruption, and then begin to come up with replacement behaviors so that you can start teaching them and practicing them with your students. And then the other thing I would say is to have a go-to response ready for redirection. So have something quick, brief, 3 to 5 words that you can say that addresses behavior, redirects their behavior so that in that moment you can continue teaching without a major issue. Here's the next question. Do you have any tips for keeping students interested and engaged? I believe that one of the best tools to manage student behavior is to have a very interesting, engaged lesson. So when your lesson is really interesting and engaging and it really connects with the students, automatically your behaviors or the misbehaviors will decrease. So number one, I would say make it interactive. So don't just you talk and they listen, but actually have parts of the lesson where students are engaged with it, participating, doing something related to the content or the topic. The next thing I would say is to get the students involved through leadership and responsibility. So give them jobs within the lesson, give them parts that they can play to make the lesson come alive or make it function. That also will bring in that engagement and that ownership of, oh, I want to pay attention or be a part of what I'm learning. The other thing I would say is make it relatable and relevant. So oftentimes with my classrooms, I would find a way to connect what I'm teaching with what's happening in the culture, what's happening in the current events, or I would use situations that they are currently living in and make that connection so they can say, oh, okay, this applies to me, or I aspire to this. This goes without saying, in my opinion, but have fun. You know, I'm a big believer. If you're going to stay, you might as well have fun. So have fun in your lessons and give variety. Don't always do the same thing over and over. One thing I love to say is that if you think your class is boring, it's boring. So those are a few tips to keep your students interested and engaged. Next question. How can I make my rules clear without sounding like a drill sergeant? Okay, so one of the ways that you can do this, this is actually a good question because if you do sound like a drill sergeant, you do sound like a dictator, so to speak, your students are less likely to follow or embrace what you're trying to do. So I would say come from the perspective that you are giving them success tools. When I started doing that, that changed the game with how with how students receive the rules and expectations. So I treated it like I am giving them success tools to make it, to do well, to succeed in the classroom. That's how I approached it in my mind. So one of those ways is to be creative with your review. Find creative ways to review your rules and your expectations. I've used things like Jeopardy. I've used things like You Be the Teacher. I've definitely let students review. So that's another thing I would say. Allow students to engage in the review of it. I've had them do different things like create videos. We did a comic strip one time. So there's just different ways that you can come at reviewing the rules and the expectations where it's fun, interesting. And let me just tell you something, the more the students engage in it, the more likely they will, once again, take ownership of it, remember it, know it, and actually enforce it with other students. All right, here's the next question. What if there's a student who just won't cooperate, right? We've all had those students who just won't cooperate. So here's what I'll say. First of all, don't assume that you know why, ask. So definitely open up the doors of communication and ask the student what's going on. Now, you do not do this in the middle of the non-cooperation. You do this after when it's a quiet, calm time and say, you know what? I've noticed that whenever I ask you to do A, you do B. Whenever I bring this up, you do this. What's going on? And depending on the grade level that you're teaching, you package it in a way that's appropriate for the grade level. The next thing I would say is find the function and try to meet the need. That is a core pillar of mine, where try to find out what is going on. Why are they behaving this way? And if you watch the other videos, you know I use the acronym SHAPES, SHAPES, and I start to say, okay, what are they trying to say with their behavior? What are they trying to get or avoid, or is this something that they don't have the skill set for? Also, I would say aim for baby steps when it comes to progress. So instead of trying to get them to do the full thing, try to get them to do a baby step of the thing. So let's just say you want them to complete, an assignment independently. And the assignment happens to be 5 paragraphs of something, right? And these are for kids who just will not cooperate. Instead of saying, I need you to do the 5 paragraphs, how about saying, I need you to do 1 paragraph? Or how about start with the opening sentence and then let's go from there? Because what you want to do is build momentum to get them to get started. And as they get started, they start to see, oh, okay, this wasn't as painful as I thought. Or actually, you know what? I can do hard things. So you start to do that and then progress as you go along. Another thing you can do is to create like a special plan or a unique plan just for them. Now, remember, this plan, from my perspective, is never meant to be permanent. It's really not meant to last for the rest of the year, but it's really meant to get them started because I'm really big on let's get you started, let's get you rolling, and then we'll get you to the typical program or the thing that we're trying to do. So definitely create a special plan just for them, just to get them started, and then slowly migrate them to what everyone else is doing. And then, of course, communicate with staff and parents. I do think we definitely need to communicate with our parents. Do not leave them in the dark. Let them know if you can create a partnership with them, that's great. But let them know this is what happens, this is what's happening, and give them, like a picture of it where it's like when this happens, this happens. When we do this, this happens. And then I have been doing this in the classroom and letting them know, I just want you to know. And if you can talk to your son or daughter, I would really appreciate it. Or if you can get them to, do whatever you're looking for, I would appreciate it. So those are the things. And then when it comes to communicating with staff, I truly believe you need to cover yourself. Don't be out there by yourself. This was never meant to be an island job. We are a community. Let your staff, whether it's your team leader, your support staff, whatever that looks like in your situation, let them know what's going on. Not so much where they have to find a solution for it in that moment, but really say, this is what's going on with my student. All right, next question. How do I smoothly switch between activities without chaos breaking out? So this sounds like a transition question, right? How do I transition from activity to activity, whether it's in the classroom or out of the classroom? The first thing I like to say is pre-teach what you expect. So teach the expectation of the transition. So whether it's we will transition like this is what the behavior needs to look like, this is what voice level looks like, this is what your body movement looks like, train that. Don't assume, I don't care if your students are in the 11th grade. Do not assume do not assume they know how. Now, how you present it to an 11th grader will be different from how you present it to a second grader. Absolutely, but just don't assume. I have went through a lot assuming that because they're a certain age or they're a certain height or they're a certain grade that they know. They don't. for your particular classroom until you teach them. So pre-teach what you expect. Make sure your students know what the next step is and that that next step is ready. So if they need something to go to transition from whole group to small group, make sure you have whatever they need for small group or they have it. Make sure they have what they need for that transition because that also can create a chaotic situation. I would also say another thing you can do, have a signal that you use a timer that, or even like a song. There's times I've used a song. Songs are like 3 minutes. Some of them are 2 minutes and 30 seconds. This is how I know, right? And I'll pick a song and they know when that song comes on, they have to put things away and either move to the next place or they have to prepare for the next activity. Also, reinforce what you want to see and consequence what you don't. And that I know people are saying we don't consequence. Actually, you do, but that's a different workshop. But reinforce what you want to see. So in order to make that stronger, that calm transition stronger, spend some time targeting that behavior and reinforce it. Maybe increase the frequency and then slowly fade it out. But also there needs to be a consequence when they don't, because there's some kids who are like, I'm not rolling with that. Well, they have that choice. But when you make that choice, you also choose to have a consequence for it. That's called life. So, and then also make time for practice. Make time for them to practice the actual calm transition and then give feedback. And the feedback can be encouraging, praiseworthy, or corrective or redirective. So that's what I would do for transitions. All right, next question. Is praising good behavior really effective? I'm kind of surprised to see this question, but yes, well, maybe not, maybe not. Okay. Yes, absolutely. I mean, don't you feel good when you get praised for something? I know I do. So yes, it absolutely works. Here's the key, I would say though. You need to be authentic and in balance based on the situation or the student, right? So our students are, they smell a lie. They smell inauthenticity. I don't know if that's a word, but you get what I'm saying, right? They smell it a mile away and then they respond in not a good way to that. So be authentic, whether it's through your personality or the words that you use, be authentic in it, really mean it. And if you don't mean it and you're not a good faker, don't fake it because that can come around and slap you upside the head later on. So, and then also imbalance. So you don't want to pour it on so thick that it becomes like ineffective. So yes, does praising good behavior, is that really effective? Yes, absolutely. But it is in how you do it matters. So next question, what is the best way to handle student conflicts? Okay, so that is really based on the situation again, but let me give you some general tips. I would say, depending on the intensity of it, separate the students, right? Get both sides of what's happening. Make sure that both sides are being heard, even if it's nonsense. Sometimes it's about being heard. And then you want to take that as the guide of how you respond. When it comes to conflicts, don't be afraid to ask for help and get help from another adult to help you kind of figure out what is going on. Because at the end of the day, when you're dealing with conflicts, you don't want this to go on all year, all quarter. You do want there to be some ending to it. Another thing I like to do is I like to set boundaries. So I'm like, we're not going to use this tone of voice. We're not going to use this type of language when we are handling this conflict. That ends now. But I do want to hear you. So this is how you can communicate. Give feedback. And I would also say what's pivotal is to get an agreement, right? At the end. An agreement doesn't always mean they feel like it was solved or everything went the way both parties wanted, but they will agree to table it until tomorrow. They will agree to allow you to get more information. They will agree to stay out of each other's way, So I would say that separate, get both sides, make sure both, parties are being heard, set boundaries, give feedback, and yeah, get an agreement. All right, so I think we're going to do a few more questions. How do I cater to all the different types of students in my classroom? How do I cater? Okay, so I'm going to say oftentimes you cannot do that at the same time. on the same day. So you cannot be everything to every student. Now, you can be the guiding force for your class. Yes, you can be, yes, you can be the one who guides the ship, so to speak, but know that there's times that you're going to miss the boat. There's times that you can't meet every student's need in the moment all the time. That's just not something that's realistic. You can structure your class and your day in a way that a lot of the needs are met, so that students feel heard and they feel valued and that there's boundaries and that they experience success. But I would say, don't try to cater to all of the needs at the same time. Try to cater to the needs maybe in the same week. I've definitely had to do that where I had, I was teaching one grade level, but there were multiple learning levels and multiple ages and multiple maturity levels, and all of them had different needs. Some of them want attention, some of them want attention, some of them want power, some of them, are trying to escape. So I made space for them in the week. That was my approach. Um, and then I did as much as I could in a day, but um I didn't, I didn't get back, what's the right word? But I didn't put myself down because I couldn't do it every single day because I'm just one person and I just don't think it's possible. Okay, so next question. What if students seem totally checked out? Okay. I get this a lot. So this answer may seem simple, and it is, but not always easy. Okay. So find out what gets them checked out and then see if you can meet their need or get close to it so that they can check back in. Again, there are so many reasons why the student might be checking out. So I always start out with looking at the patterns of the behavior, saying, okay, let me make an educated guess based on the patterns that I'm seeing of the function, but I also talk to the student. I have gotten so much information by having a conversation with the student with no pressure and saying, you know what? I notice that every time you come to class, this is happening. Or why is it that every time we do this, you have your head down or you're staring, it seems like you're staring into space. What's going on? So I've gotten a lot of traction by just asking the students, right? So try to find out what's checking them out and then say, okay, some students say, I can't do the work. Some of the students say I'm sleepy. Some of the students say, I just don't want to do work. Some of the students say, I'm here on probation. I'm here because of probation, right? So I will take that and I said, okay, I see where you're coming from, but let's see how we can both get what we need, right? Or let's see how we can work it out so that you are successful. So it just depends on the student, how I come, the angle that I take. But what I do is I work at giving them so what I do is I start with baby steps. What can I do to get them to do one thing today, or half of the thing, or a part of the thing, right? That's my first goal. Getting them to do all the things they're supposed to do, that's the outcome. But I really start with how can I get them started so that they can experience success and victory and they are more likely to want to do it? Or how can I get them started so that they understand that in order for me to leave them alone, right? In order for them not to get in trouble or, always being bothered by the teacher, this is what it would take. Are you willing to do it? And oftentimes I ask for agreement, not so much because, well, they need to agree to do what I ask, more so because if they are in agreement and they said I'm in agreement, then they approach the task with, well, I said I was going to do it, so let me go ahead and do it. And the last question, believe it or not, I do get this, is I need help. So how can you help teachers like me? So the way I help teachers is I have these YouTube videos. So if you look on my channel, you'll see a bunch of YouTube videos. I also do teacher consultations. So I offer, if you go to my website, I'll leave it in the link I'll leave it in the description below, where I actually meet with teachers one-on-one through Zoom oftentimes. And we get real specific because I know that sometimes teachers come on this channel and they ask really specific questions, but the problem is I need more details. And so it's hard to get to the root of it without me being able to ask, well, what happened when you do this? What's the student's response with this? Are you allowed to do this in your school? That kind of thing. Another thing you can do is you can book me for your school. I've definitely had a lot of teachers and principals and support staff reach out to me and say, well, do you take POs and do you take district funds? I absolutely do. I'm often willing to be a vendor. Then I meet with the school and we talk about what are the needs of the school. And then I do the train for your school virtually or in person. Um, I also have on-demand courses that you can access. I'm working on building up that library of on-demand courses, but right now we have the 3, and that I'll leave in the description. Also, you can join my newsletter if you're not on my newsletter. I often give tips and strategies on my newsletter for various behaviors depending on the season of the school year. So, and one thing I am thinking about trying is a live workshop. So I'm thinking about doing a live workshop next month. So if you are interested in that, can you put down there, let's do live? And also, and if I were to do it like in the evening EST, let's do live in the EST. You can leave that and I'll definitely look into it. But those are the ways that I help. All right, teacher friends, what did you think? How did you like this Q&A format that I did in today's video? If you like it, definitely give me a thumbs up, subscribe, leave the comments below saying I really like this. And if you do, and I really get some really good feedback, I'm willing to come back again and maybe take some more questions from the comments or from people who email me and respond here on the channel. All right, everybody, thanks for listening, and I will see you in the next video.